Hello, my name is Lindsay Turner, and I'm here to talk to you about the potential risks associated with emerging adulthood. Since emerging adulthood is a fairly contemporary idea, when I found out that my project was on that idea, I flipped to chapter 17 and I dove right in. That's when I learned that emerging adulthood is that time period between adolescence and adulthood. And then I realized, hey, I'm in that stage. So I feel pretty equipped to discuss it. It made me think of a conversation I had with my grandmother recently. Basically, she was telling me that when she was 14, she had her first job. When she was 21, she got married. And when she was 23, she had her first baby. And she never felt too young to be doing any of that. And that was so crazy to me because 14 working, 21 married, man. So I was shocked. My own mother, who is my grandmother's daughter, mind you, would have heart failure if I told her that I wanted to have a baby or get married before I finished my degree. So I was wondering, why the difference? What's changed? Well, I'll tell you what's changed. There's been a shift. Young people now value education as the new priority, and they want to explore the world and travel and do all sorts of cool things before they settle down and get married and have a family. And in that time frame of exploration and curiosity, emerging adults are huge risk takers. So I want to talk about those risks. Emerging adulthood is by far life's most impulsive season. Whether it's buying those cute shoes you saw at Target, even though you just went there for milk, or taking much more serious risks, such as drinking and driving, we often make impulsive decisions before weighing the possible future consequences. And this is known as delayed discounting. And although every age can experience that, it's more common among emerging adults. I imagine this is the reason that emerging adults make more trips to the ER than any other age group. I mean, as a college kid, you're probably going to face a lot of temptation. I know that I did, especially before I transferred to LeTourneau. There were always parties and immeasurable peer pressure, even from people who I thought were my friends. I know parents wonder why emerging adults are so willing to take risks, so I wanted to explore that for a minute. When I thought about it, I remembered the curiosity that I brought to college with me, the excitement and the newness, and like I said before, the peer pressure and the culture of Greek sorority life. It was just a lot for me to take in. So I want to give you the lowdown on some of those potential risks that you might face as a college student. And I definitely advise that you take heed, because after this, you can't say that nobody warned you. First and foremost, I want to talk to you. First and foremost, I want you to be aware of the serious, and I mean possibly fatal, risks of binge drinking. Take a look at this. Binge drinking is a huge public health concern. The main problem is that it just really doesn't seem that bad. I mean, according to the CDC, it only takes 4 drinks for a woman to be considered a binge drinker, and only 5 for a man. And if you've ever been to a party, you know that that is not a lot. What you probably don't know is that binge drinking accounts for more than half of the 79,000 annual alcohol-related deaths in the US. That's a lot of people. In fact, if you include all LeTourneau campuses, including the working adults and the graduate programs, that's still 13 times our student body population. That's pretty crazy. According to Frieden and Brewer, short-term risks of binge drinking includes car wrecks, violence, increased promiscuous activity, which with that comes the risk of sexually transmitted diseases and sexually transmitted infections, and of course, unplanned pregnancy. And the long-term risks are just as numerous as the short-term ones. They include cancer, liver and heart disease, and even strokes. Is one night really worth the rest of your life? The next risk I hope you to be aware of is drug abuse. The substance we're all most accustomed to, of course, is tobacco. I even considered not addressing it, but that would have been silly, because cigarettes are the one temptation that you'll run into in college that almost appear socially acceptable, especially at parties and clubs where alcohol is involved. But here are some facts. The primary addictive substance in a cigarette is nicotine, but there are thousands of other chemicals that can cause harm. The long-term risks include heart disease, lung cancer, emphysema, and strokes. And quitting is not easy. Just ask anyone who has tried. I've watched my own sister quit time and time again. The addiction is serious, and don't let anyone lead you to believe otherwise. Another popular substance, just not as socially acceptable, mainly because it's illegal, is marijuana. There's a pretty widespread belief that marijuana is natural. It's plant-derived, right? Therefore not as bad as tobacco. But let me be the one to set you straight. According to the CDC, marijuana smoke irritates your lungs more and contains more cancer-causing chemicals than tobacco smoke. One statistic I found on WebMD said that marijuana is associated with increased risk of progressing to more powerful and dangerous drugs like methamphetamines, such as cocaine and heroin. The risk for progressing to cocaine is 104 times higher if you've smoked marijuana once in your life. The last concern is more of a tip. If you've never heard of roofies, listen closely. Roofies are essentially just sedatives. They lower your blood pressure, can make you dizzy, cause you cramping in the abdominal area, confusion, and impaired memory. The scary part about roofies is that they're commonly used as date rape drugs, and they can be easily slipped into your drinks when you're not looking. So, a word to the wise. Never leave your drink unattended when you go to a club. Take it with you everywhere, and when you're done with it, throw it away. I know the next risk isn't mentioned in our textbook, and I know that in comparison it may seem less serious than drug abuse or alcohol abuse, but I also know that it's something that many girls my age indulge in. It's tanning. That's right, the infamous fake bake. If you've ever done it, then you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that basking in the sun, even in a tanning bed, feels good. The glow you get from continued exposure, it boosts your confidence, it can relieve some stress from a stressful week, but do not let the glitz and glamour blur the risks. Sun-kissed complexion cannot be worth skin cancer. Tanning puts you at risk for cellular damage, premature and excessive wrinkling, age spots, actinic keratosis, which is basically the starting stages of skin cancer, and skin cancer, including melanoma, which is the worst kind. I do want you to be smart about it though, so if you decide to go tanning anyway, just remember, aloe is really good for burns, and don't pop blisters. They're a source of moisture and protection. So now that we've discussed risky behavior involved with emerging adulthood, I want to talk to you about risque behavior. As emerging adults, you're going to experience a world of sexuality that newfound freedom allows you to explore however you please. The temptations, they're probably going to be inevitable, but please be wise. Of course, the best choice is abstinence, but I know many who have stumbled for one reason or another. Although the term hookup may not be as popular among the contemporary church, but it's very popular at secular universities. If you're going to engage in premarital sex, use a condom. If you don't know the sexual history of your partner, you run the risk of getting a sexually transmitted disease or infection, and if your behavior continues, you run the risk of spreading it to others. Which brings me to my next point. If you're new to this whole college scene, take it from someone who has been there and done that. You don't have to go clubbing. People who go to clubs and parties tend to consume more alcohol than those who don't. People who consume more alcohol tend to engage in promiscuous activity than those who don't. You are the only person who gets to decide what risks you're going to take and which ones you are not. Just be sure to consider the consequences. On page 487 of our textbook, I found a paragraph that was very sobering, and I want to read it to you. It says, many adults fondly remember past risks. They forget the friends who caught STIs, who had abortions or unwanted births, who became addicts or alcoholics, or those who died young. They ignore the fact that their younger siblings and children might do the same. I know that really resonated with me, so maybe it will resonate within you too. So something that you can always ask yourself is, would I want my kids to be taking the risks that I'm taking? Now, don't get me wrong. We're young. We need to try new things. It helps us to experience the world and even mature a bit. We just have to use wisdom and discernment when we make decisions. I love the scripture 1 Timothy 4:12. If you always strive to set an example, you're more likely to consider the consequences of your decisions. So the question is, are you setting an example?